What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and after a few straight weeks of madness, this past week was a rather slow one for Apple, but thankfully things will really start picking up starting next week, and we'll talk about why that is later on in this video. But let's go ahead and recap this past week, starting with Monday, which is where we got all of our software releases. So we got iOS 14.6 Beta 3, along with iPadOS 14.6 Beta 3. We also got the third beta for watchOS 7.5, macOS Big Sur 11.4, and tvOS 14.6. So that was the only thing we got all week in terms of software. Even though there was a possibility of seeing the RC build of 14.6 yesterday on Friday or even Thursday, we said how that could be a possibility. We did not end up getting that. So we only got one day of software releases this week. But in this video, I wanted to give you guys the weekly update on 14.6 Beta 3, along with iOS 14.5.1, which of course I've used extensively, both of those, for the past week. So we're going to discuss new features, performance, battery life bugs, and more. And along with the updates on the software, we're also going to discuss the latest leaks, rumors, and news, just like we did last week. All right, so let's start off with iOS 14.6 Beta 3. And overall, the software has actually been pretty good, but this is actually the first beta where I've had issues with performance and stutter and things like that. So I'll talk about that later on in the performance section. But let's start with some additional new features here in this release, in this third beta. And those are actually going to be inside of the podcast application. So if we go to a page for a podcast here, a show, as you can see right here, if I tap on these three dots up here, we have two new sections here in this menu. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up 14.5.1 over here on my iPhone 12 Pro Max. So you can see we have remove downloads and mark all as played. Both of those are new here in 14.6. There was also some additional changes found in the code by Steve Moser over at Mac Rumors. And you can see this is what he said right here. There is a new alert to tell users to clear space on their Apple Watch, probably Series 3, by unpairing before updating watchOS. And you can see there it says to install the watchOS update, unpair your Apple Watch and pair it again in the Apple Watch app on your iPhone. So that is the prompt that Apple will give you there. And then also another thing found in the code was a classroom app notification asking students permission to share their screen. So allow will allow any of the teachers to view the screen of the iPad for this session only. This can be configured in settings. So two additional things found there in 14.6 Beta 3. Another change here that's actually in 14.5.1 and 14.6 has to do with the Shazam results when you go ahead and do the music recognition toggle here in Control Center. So I'm just going to go ahead and find a song for Shazam. So I'm just going to do this real quick. So you can see it found the song up top, and if I tap on that, you will see that it's actually now an app clip. So as you can see right here, instead of opening it up inside of Shazam, like in the browser in Safari, it used to open up Shazam.com, but now you can see here there's actually an app clip for Shazam, and it shows it right here. So if you tap on open, it will actually open up the Shazam application, even if you don't have it installed because of, or thanks to, I should say, the app clips. But aside from those, there are no additional features or changes that you can actually see, but I'm sure there are even more hidden features inside of the code related to Apple Music's upcoming HiFi plan. So actually there was code in 14.6 Beta 1, I talked about this in multiple videos, that hinted at HiFi audio coming to Apple Music as part of a new plan. And the rumors have been continuing to roll in constantly. And just today, 9to5 Google confirmed that this lossless audio is also being added to the Android version of Apple Music. So this appears in a new beta release of Apple Music, and Apple includes warnings about how much storage space and data it's going to use. So you can see here, this is what they said, and this basically all but confirms that HiFi audio is definitely coming to Apple Music very, very soon. Now we know that it's coming, but we don't really have any additional details, of course, because it's not official yet, but we have heard rumors that it's going to be $9.99 per month, just like the standard Apple Music plan, which would be a pretty good deal if you're into lossless audio and high fidelity audio. Now we don't know exactly what devices will be compatible with this, like where you're going to be able to hear this, increase in the quality, if it's going to be just the AirPods Pro and AirPods Max, or if possibly the upcoming AirPods 3 will be able to, have this HiFi audio, be able to go through those headphones and, be able to actually hear the difference in quality. So we'll have to wait and see on that, but we are definitely very close to seeing something new with Apple Music and hopefully AirPods as well, which we'll talk about near the end of this video. Now, also Twitter finally started rolling out their app tracking transparency splash screen here on the latest update of the application. You can see here right away, it's a lot less how can I put this, clickbaity than the Facebook and Instagram splash screens, which we talked about in the past, where basically they had some empty threats saying how you have to enable this, or, Facebook's going to be paid in the future. Basically, it's not going to be a free application, which was kind of an empty threat, really weird, way of putting it. But you can see here, Twitter is a lot more realistic with their approach. Their sales pitch, you could say, is a lot less threatening and a lot more kind of inviting and a lot more informative than Facebook and Instagram's. You can see how they say you can decide if you will allow tracking in the iOS prompt, and you can always change this later in your device settings, and basically just telling it how it really is and not really threatening you, which is nice to see, and definitely a big difference from what we saw with Facebook. So that's interesting. I always like following along with this app tracking transparency feature. And speaking of that, it's also interesting to note that Flurry Analytics constantly is putting out these reports. And you can see here the latest report over 2 weeks in now, only 5% of iOS users in the US opted in to app tracking transparency, whereas 13% worldwide opted in to this feature. So we are over 2 weeks now, and you can see right here, you're going to notice there's a slight little bump there after Facebook started rolling out that threatening splash screen. So it's still pretty low overall, probably lower than Apple would like, but it is pretty interesting that there was a spike there once Facebook started sending out those threatening, empty threat splash screens. So pretty interesting there, but I always like to follow along, and I will let you guys know next week as well if that number has stayed, the same, or if it's gone up any. Now, also the messages bug appears to be fixed here in beta 3. So in beta 2, I showed you guys that I had issues with sending media, and it would basically say that it was not delivered. I'd have the red exclamation point, even though the image was actually sent, and I've not had that once here on beta 3. So thankfully that appears to be fixed. Now, what has not been fixed is the Siri cutting off mid-sentence bug. So this really just started happening to me on beta 2 and beta 3, and it's still happening with the Maps directions. And even when asking certain questions to Siri, sometimes they will just cut out, like the voice just cuts out mid-sentence and doesn't finish what he or she was going to say. And again, this mainly happens with Maps, and especially in CarPlay for a lot of people. Now, about the music cue bug, a lot of you guys ask me about this constantly in every video, and this has not been fully fixed. I've still had it a few times here in beta 3, but it's definitely less frequent than it was in 14.5 and in previous betas of 14.6. 14.5 happened pretty much every time, and there was no fixing it. But now in 14.6 beta 3, sometimes when you don't see the 3 lines there on the cue for the first song, if you just tap out of it and tap back into the cue, it reappears, but it doesn't even happen every single time. So it's getting better, but it's still not fully fixed. And honestly, at this point, I'm just waiting for iOS 15 to fix that. So so we're still having that every now and then, but it's not as frequent. Same with the AirPlay to HomePod. It's not near as bad as it was in 14.5, but it's still not perfect. And I actually have not noticed any improvement in beta 3 over beta 2, although beta 2 was a nice improvement over beta 1. And as far as the loud notification bug, a lot of people have this, myself included. I still have, very inconsistent notification sound. So sometimes they'll be real loud, sometimes they'll be real low, whether it's a text message or, a message on Instagram or Twitter, something like that, whatever. When you get a noise, sometimes it's inconsistent and not the same volume throughout the day. So now let's talk about the performance here on 14.6 beta 3, because this is really the only time where I've had an issue with this beta so far. So I did not have any issues on beta 1 or beta 2, but on my main device over here, specifically in certain applications, it just seems to be really slow. Like for instance, Robinhood and Webull both are very slow here in beta 3, and I'm not really too sure why that is. So there are other applications as well, even like Twitter was being very slow the other day, and I actually had Twitter force quit on me. Like it just crashed on me after I opened it and tweets wouldn't refresh. It just closed on me. And that was the first app crash I've had in like over a month or maybe 2 months. So 14.6 beta 3, I'm having some stutter issues. Applications sometimes are slower than they were on previous betas. So I'm not sure what it is, but I actually think that 14.6 beta 2 had better performance. So I really hope that we get the RC build pretty soon, because overall performance is not as good in my opinion as it was on the previous beta. But as far as the battery life goes, nothing has changed with the battery life. I've not noticed any difference from betas 1 or 2. Now, there is actually a change on the iPad Pro, my 2020 iPad Pro here. I've had really bad battery life really since 14.5, but the 14.6 beta 3, it's actually improved. And I've actually noticed maybe like a 45 minute to an hour change in on-screen time I was able to get. So it seems like the battery life is better for the iPad Pro. So if you were having issues with battery life on previous versions, try out beta 3, or if you're on 14.5 or 14.5.1 and you're hoping for a battery drain fix in 14.6, you just might get it, because I am getting better battery life on that, but I'm just not on the iPhones. It's about the same as it was on betas 1 and 2. Now, as far as iOS 14.5.1 here, really there's not much to talk about. I mean, this is a pretty boring update. Of course, this was just a security fix update. It just fixed up some WebKit bugs, and really that was it. I mean, we still have the issue in Find My, or not really the issue, but if we go to Find My here and then, tap 4 times on the name of the AirTag, we have this crazy dev menu, which has been fixed in 14.6 beta 3. You don't see this anymore. You're not able to see this anymore, but this is a pretty cool little Easter egg there if you have an AirTag in the Find My application. But other than that, I mean, there's really nothing new or really anything to talk about with 14.5.1. Performance and battery life are literally exactly the same as they were on 14.5. So really just a security fix update with that added bonus of that dev menu, that developer menu in the Find My application. So now let's talk about what is next for Apple. So next week is the week of the 17th. And I think that we are going to be seeing either beta 4 or more likely the RC build on Monday or Tuesday. I think early in the week is when we will see a new software release from Apple, of course, for everything: iOS, iPadOS, watchOS, tvOS, and macOS. And I think that the final should be released next week as well, when the new iMac and iPad Pros get released, which is on Friday, the 21st. So I would guess that later in the week is when we would get the final, maybe on like the 19th or the 20th. But we could even see the final get released on Tuesday the 18th because of something I'm going to talk about in a couple of minutes here. So we could actually see the final on Tuesday. We could even see the RC on Monday and the final on Tuesday as a possibility, but we are definitely seeing something next week leading up to the iMac and iPad Pros getting released on Friday. So just stay tuned. Of course, Apple is super inconsistent, super unpredictable nowadays. But anyways, if we go down to next month, June 7th, that of course is when we're going to see iOS 15 beta 1 at the start of Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference 2021, starting on the week of June 7th. So we will see that then. So a lot of great coverage coming up for iOS 15. Definitely stay tuned for that. So now let me go ahead and talk to you guys about what I was talking about for Tuesday the 18th. And that is new AirPods could be coming on that day. And this is according to Luke Miani and others. And they said that we might be seeing AirPods 3 next week on June 18th via a press release. And this would likely coincide with not only the announcement of that HiFi Apple Music plan that we've been talking about, but Apple could also mention when iOS 14.6 is being released in that same press release, if not just releasing 14.6 that very same day, that very same time. So next week should be very interesting if this rumor actually comes true. But of course, even if it doesn't, we should see something software related next week at the bare minimum. But hopefully we do see those new AirPods as well. That would be awesome. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, Apple just started discontinuing the space gray accessories for the Mac, since of course the iMac Pro was also discontinued a couple weeks back, and that was one of the only space gray Macs ever made. So of course we did have other space gray models as well that you could use these on, but this likely coincides with the iMac Pro being discontinued. So now the space gray Magic Mouse, the Magic Keyboard, and the Magic Trackpad all say while supplies last in small text down there on Apple's website, indicating that they are in fact limited and they will likely sell out very soon and just be done with them. So hopefully we see, more space gray accessories coming at a future time. I'm not sure why they would discontinue these. I'm kind of upset about that. They should still keep selling them just because they look so good, but Apple has decided to go ahead and discontinue those space gray accessories. And then also this week, we got a first look at the Geekbench scores for the upcoming iMac and iPad Pros, and they both offer huge improvements as expected over the previous generation models. And I will be going over these numbers more in depth in upcoming videos here on the channel, so stay tuned for that. I'll also be getting my hands on both the new M1 iMac and the M1 iPad Pro next Friday, or this coming Friday. So I can't wait to bring you guys coverage on those products. I think you guys will really enjoy that. But yeah, there you have it, guys. That was the weekly follow-up for this past week. I hope you enjoyed this new format of kind of combining everything into one video, software and hardware and just rumors and all of that. So if you do enjoy these, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up. And of course, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss next week's follow-up video, always coming on Saturdays. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.